Hello, my friends. I'm Dr. John Lee. For more than 40 years, I've practiced medicine and taught at the university level, and I've sat with thousands of accomplished people just like you, engineers who built entire cities, teachers who shaped generations, business owners who employed hundreds. They come into my office 6 months or a year after the retirement party, and they say the same quiet thing: I crossed the finish line, but I don't know who I am anymore. If you're watching this right now and that sentence lands in your chest, I want you to know something important. You are not broken. You are not fading. You are simply standing at the threshold of one of the most important transitions of your entire life. And today I want to talk about the mental pivot that turns retirement from a slow decline into a season of renewed energy, meaning, and even joy. We tend to label this feeling as depression, and sometimes it is. But for most of the men and women I see, it's something deeper, an existential adjustment. For decades, your identity was tied to what you produced. You were the one everyone called when things broke. You solved problems, you provided, you led. Your calendar told you that you mattered. Then one day the calendar goes blank. The phone stops ringing and suddenly the mirror feels a little unfamiliar. I remember a patient I'll call Mr. Chen. He ran a large manufacturing company for 32 years. 6 months after selling the business, he sat right where you're sitting now and told me, "Dr. Lee, I have all the time I've ever wanted, and I've never felt more useless." He wasn't clinically depressed, his blood work was fine. What he had was a massive void where his sense of contribution used to live. Society tells us, just relax. Play golf, travel, you've earned it. But many of us, especially those who spent our lives in service, in problem solving, in building things that outlasted us, find that pure leisure eventually feels empty. You might be noticing it in subtle ways: the irritability that seems to come from nowhere, the strange habit of checking work email even though you no longer have a job, the way your grandkids listen politely but don't really ask for your advice anymore, or that peculiar fatigue that hits even though you're sleeping more than ever. These aren't signs that you're getting old. They're signs that your soul is asking for a new job description. So how do we answer that call? The first thing I tell every patient is this: stop waiting for one big dramatic purpose to show up. That's a trap. You don't need to start a foundation or become the next Colonel Sanders. What you need are small, consistent ripples that remind your nervous system you're still in the game. I call them micro-contributions. Maybe you spend one morning a week at the local community college mentoring young immigrants who are studying medicine or engineering. Perhaps you volunteer to read to children at the library in your neighborhood. Your calm voice and patience are medicines those kids don't even know they need. Or you might decide to learn watercolor, not because you'll have a gallery show, but because mastering something new at 70 tells your brain you're still growing. The beautiful part is that every time you share what you've learned over a lifetime, you're doing what older generations in my culture have always done. You're passing down hard-earned wisdom. In Chinese tradition, we call this seeding the next harvest. Your experience is not obsolete, it's fertilizer. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. That sounds nice, Dr. Lee, but I just don't feel motivated. Here's the secret I've learned after 4 decades in medicine: motivation is a follower, not a leader. Action comes first. You don't wait until you feel like exercising before you go for a walk. You put on your shoes and the feeling follows. The same is true for purpose. Start ridiculously small. Schedule a coffee with a former colleague who's struggling in their career and simply listen. Take a neighborhood walk with the deliberate intention of saying hello to 3 people. Sign up for one class that meets every Tuesday at 10 a.m. So your week has a spine again. These tiny anchors become the scaffolding of a new life. Think of it like physical therapy for your soul. You don't begin with a marathon. You begin with gentle, consistent movements that rebuild strength you didn't even realize you'd lost. Over time, those small movements become strides, and those strides become a completely new chapter. The deepest shift I want you to make is this: you are not retiring from life. You are retiring from a role. The most valuable years may very well be the ones still in front of you. You now possess something precious that young people desperately need but rarely know how to ask for: perspective. The ability to see around corners, the calm that only comes from having survived storms. Your family, your community, even perfect strangers need what you carry. Sometimes they need your skills. Sometimes they simply need your presence. The way you can walk into a room and lower everyone's blood pressure just by being steady. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What has surprised you most about this stage of life? Was it the freedom you thought you'd feel, or the unexpected struggle to find your footing again? When you share your story, you're doing something powerful, you're contributing again. You're telling someone else sitting alone in their living room that they're not the only one. That single act of honesty might be the most important micro contribution you make all week. My friends, the renewal you're looking for isn't hiding on a beach in Bali or at the bottom of a new hobby. It's waiting in the small, brave decision to keep showing up as someone who still matters, because you do. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm Dr. John Lee, and I'll see you in our next conversation. Take care of yourself, and remember, you're still writing the best part of your story.